Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our buddy read of Mr. Scarborough's Family by Anthony Trollope. This is his final serious, really great novel, and we have been transported to Brussels, to the British Embassy at Brussels, where poor Florence Mountjoy has been brought by her mother to keep her away from Harry Annesley, the hero of the book, because Mama Mountjoy does not want Florence and Harry to marry. She doesn't like what she's heard about Harry. She doesn't interrogate whether or not what she's heard about Harry is true. And she wants Florence, against all odds, to marry her disgraced cousin Mountjoy. A part of Mama Mountjoy's mind knows that's impossible, but she wants to do it anyway. She wants it to happen anyway. And also in Brussels, Florence has been the subject of a great deal of woo pitching from other men. All with the connivance of Sir Magnus Mountjoy and Lady Mountjoy and Mama Mountjoy, who all want her to pick somebody else, somebody other than Harry Annesley. And we are going on to this next chapter today. We are this far from the end of the book, and Trollope is intent on beginning to wrap up some plot lines. He definitely doesn't want Florence in Brussels for the conclusion of his book. So we're going to read, I'm just sitting here on my couch. I don't know if I'll release these all today, but we're going to read the next chapter right away, chapter 46, which is called Monsieur Grascour. Mr. Grascour was a Belgian. We've already met Grascour. We've already had a brief introduction to him when we got an introduction to the embassy staff. Mr. Grascour was a Belgian about 40 years old who looked as though he were no more than 30, except perhaps his hair was in patches beginning to be a little gray. He was in the government service of his country, well educated, and thoroughly a gentleman. As is the case with many Belgians, he would have been taken to be an Englishman were his country not known. I'm not a Frenchie. I'm a Belgie. He had dressed himself in English mirrors, living mostly with the English. He spoke English so well that he would only be known to be a foreigner by the correctness of his language. He was a man of singularly good temper, and there was running through all that he did somewhat of a chivalric spirit, which came from study rather than nature. He had looked into things and seen whether they were good, and at any rate popular, and endeavored to grasp hard to make his own whatever he found to be so. He was hitherto unmarried, and was regarded generally by his friends as a non-marrying man. But Florence Mountjoy was powerful over him, and he set to work to make her his wife. So it's not just Mr. Anderson, it's also Mr. Grascour. He was intimate at the house of Sir Magnus, and saw, no doubt, that Anderson was doing the same thing. But he saw also that Anderson did not succeed. He had told himself from the first that if Anderson did not succeed, he would not wish to do so. That if Anderson did succeed, he would not wish to do so. The girl would be too satisfied with Anderson, would hardly be content with him. I think the understanding here is probably that Anderson is a lot better looking. He remained, therefore, quiet till he saw that Anderson had failed. The young man at once took to an altered mode of life which was sufficiently marked. He went, like Sir Proteus, ungartered. Everything about him had of late demonstrated a careless desolation. These are quotes. All this Mr. Grascour observed, and when he saw it, he felt that his own time had come. He took occasion to be first to wait upon Lady Mountjoy. He believed that to be the proper way of going to work. He was very intimate with the Mountjoys, and was aware that his circumstances were known to them. There was no reason on the score of money why he should not marry the niece of Sir Magnus. He had already shown some attention to Florence, which, though it excited no suspicion in her mind, had been seen and understood by her aunt. And it had been understood also by Mr. Anderson. That accursed Belgian! If, after all, she should take up with him, I shall tell her a bit of my mind. If anything of that kind should occur. Keep in mind, Anderson's biggest worry has not been Harry Annesley. It's been that Florence's protestations about Harry Annesley were just a screen. And that if Anderson begs off from his suit because of her protestations about Harry Annesley, she might end up marrying someone else, and then he would feel like a fool. He doesn't believe her about Harry Annesley, nor does anyone else connected with her. My niece, Mr. Grascour. Yes, my lady. Grascour did not quite go over the way of calling Lady Mountjoy my lady. It is presumption, I know. Not at all. I have not spoken to her, nor will I do so till I have first addressed myself to you or her mother. May I speak to Mrs. Mountjoy? Oh, certainly. I do not in the least know what the young lady's ideas are. She has been much admired here and elsewhere, and that may have turned her head. I think not. You may be better judge, Mr. Grascour. I think that Miss Mountjoy's head has not been turned by any admiration. She does not appear to be a young lady whose head would easily be turned. It is her heart of which I am thinking. The interview ended by Lady Mountjoy passing the Belgian lover on to Mrs. Mountjoy. Florence, said Mrs. Mountjoy. Yes, Mrs. Mountjoy, I have the great honour of asking your permission. I am well known to Sir Magnus and Lady Mountjoy, and they can tell what are my circumstances. I am 40 years of age. Oh, yes, everything is, I'm sure, quite as it should be. But my daughter thinks about these things for herself. Then there was a pause, and Mr. Grascour was about to leave the room, having obtained the permission he desired, when Mrs. Mountjoy thought it well to acquaint him with something of her daughter's condition. I ought to tell you that my daughter has been engaged. Indeed? Yes. And I hardly know how to explain the circumstances. I should say that she has been promised to her cousin, Captain Scarborough, but that this she will not give her assent. She has since met a gentleman, Mr. Annesley, for whom she professes an attachment. Neither can I, nor can her uncle or her aunt, hear of Mr. Annesley as a husband for Florence. She is therefore at present disengaged. If you can gain her affections, you have my leave. With this permission, Mr. Grascour departed, professing himself to be contented. We're not hating Mamma Mountjoy in this read-along. We're not hating her, but this is odious. You know your daughter. You know what she thinks and feels. And yet you loose this 40-year-old adventurer on her. You should not be giving your permission. Whether you like it or not, you shouldn't be giving your permission. He did not see Florence for 2 or 3 days, no doubt leaving the matter to be discussed with her by her mother and her aunt. To him it was quite indifferent what might be the fate of Captain Scarborough, or of Mr. Annesley, or indeed of Mr. Anderson. And to tell the truth, he was not under any violent fear or hope as to his own fate. He admired Miss Mountjoy, and thought it would be well to secure for a wife such a girl with such a fortune as would belong to her. Everyone thinks about her money. Mr. Anderson did as well. Notice, Harry Annesley doesn't seem to think about her money. He took a job going to America instead of saying, well, we'll have to live on your money. He doesn't appear to think of it as that much. Her suitors in Brussels certainly do. But he did not intend to go unguarded, nor yet assume an air of desolation. If she would come to him, it would be well. If she would not, why, it would still be well. The only outward difference made by his love was that he brushed his clothes and his hair a little more carefully, and had his boots brought to a higher state of polish than was usual. Her mother spoke to her at first. My dear, Mr. Grascour is an excellent man. I'm sure he is, Mamma. And he is a great friend of your uncle and Lady Mountjoy. Why do you say this, Mamma? What can it matter to me? My dear, Mr. Grascour wishes you to become his wife. Oh, Mamma, why didn't you tell him it was impossible? How was I to know, my dear? Mamma, I am engaged to marry Harry Annesley, and no word shall ever turn me from that purpose, unless it be spoken by himself. The crier may say all that around the town if he wishes. You must know that it is so. What can be the use of sending Mr. Grascour or any other gentleman to me? It is only giving me pain, and him too. I wish, Mamma, you could be got to understand this. But Mrs. Mountjoy could not altogether be got as yet to understand the obstinacy of her daughter's character. There was at one point on which Florence received information from these 2 suitors who had come to her at Brussels. They were both favoured, one after the other, by her mother, and would not have been so favoured had her mother not absolutely believed in Captain Mountjoy. Had her mother absolutely believed in Captain Mountjoy. In other words, her mother has given up the cause of Captain Mountjoy. It seemed to her as though her mother would be willing that she should marry anyone so long as it was not Harry Annesley. That is pretty much what it's boiled down to, and that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. It is a pity that there should be such a difference, she said to herself, but we will see what firmness can do. Firmness worked with Mr. Anderson. But I have to wonder, can I introduce a meta question here? You're all so good. You're also patient with me here. And believe me, when I taught books in classrooms, this is exactly what I did. There were no indifferent students. None. If at the beginning of a term there were students in the back who were intent on being indifferent, regardless of whether or not what I said was interesting, I told them to leave and don't come back. And don't send your parents to complain to me either. And don't send your parents to complain to my boss. My boss is an old friend of mine. So just go. If you're here intent on not participating at all, then I want you gone because you're a waste of everybody's time. But if you're here and you're not intent on not being involved, but you really don't think you will be, good luck. Good luck. I can involve you. I can involve any fence sitter. And I often used to pose meta questions in class as well. And my meta question here. Look at the two things that we're seeing here. Mama Montjoy, this is true, what we've heard. Mama Montjoy's stance now is pretty much that she will have Florence marry anyone except Harry. Without a reason. I don't even need to know much of them. It just can't be him. And Uncle Prosper, after he's been told the truth of what happened between Harry and Captain Montjoy in London, after all of that, even after seeing how horrifying the alternatives are, marriage and Miss Tickle, he also is thinking, well, anything other than Harry Annesley. And he says it's the sermons. But the meta question here is there something about Harry that we don't know? Is he disagreeable on some basic elemental level that we don't know? What is causing all these people to hate him so irrationally? Anyway, let's we could also use Augustus Scarborough, who in the course of one afternoon changes from being a happy host to Harry down at Tretton Park to being his avowed enemy and saying to all and sundry that he wants to destroy Harry. Why is that? Why is that? Even Mrs. Armitage, when she's joking with Harry, she's a friend of his. When she's joking with him, she seems to say that he's a little bit high on the horse. Just thought, that's all. Now I don't even remember where we were. All right, firmness. Then Lady Montjoy spoke to her. You have heard of Mr. Grascour, my dear? Yes, I have heard of him, aunt. He intends to do you the honor of asking you to be his wife. This is Lady Montjoy going at her. So Mamma tells me. I only say that he is the man most highly esteemed here. He is well known at court and is at the royal parties. Should you become his wife, you would have all the society of Brussels at your feet. All the society of Brussels would do no good. Perhaps not. Nor the court, nor the royal parties. If you choose to be impertinent when I tell you that those are advantages and conditions in life, I cannot help it. I do not mean to be impertinent. What you say about the royal parties and the court is intended for impertinence, knowing as you do your uncle's position. Not at all. You know my position. I am engaged to marry another man, and cannot therefore marry Mr. Grascour. Why should he be sent to me, except that you won't believe me when I tell you that I am engaged? Then she marched out of the room, and considered within her own bosom what answer she would give to this new Belgian suitor. He's not going to exercise these little grey cells. She was made perfectly aware when the Belgian suitor was about to arrive. On the day but one after the interview with her aunt, she was left alone when the other ladies went out, and suspected that even the footman knew what was to happen. When Mr. Grascour was shown into the drawing-room, there was a simple mode of dealing with the matter on his part, very different from the state of agitation into which Harry had been thrown when he had made his own proposition. In other words, Mr. Grascour is not in love. She was quite prepared to admit that Mr. Grascour's plan might be the wisest, but Harry's manner had been full of real love, and had charmed her. Grascour was not in the least flustered, whereas poor Harry had been hardly able to speak. But it had not mattered much whether Harry spoke his mind or not, whereas all the eloquence in the world could have done no good for Mr. Grascour. Florence had known that Harry did love her, whereas Mr. Grascour, she knew only that he wanted to make her his wife. Which is absolutely true. That is an accurate read of the situation. He does not love her, and he never will. He just wants to make her his wife. Miss Montjoy, he said, I am charmed to find you here. Allow me to add that I am charmed to find you alone. Florence, who knew all about it, only bowed. She had to go through it, and thought she would be able to do so with equanimity. I do not know whether your aunt or your mother have done me the honor of mentioning my name to you. They have both spoken to me. I thought it best that they should have the opportunity of doing so. In your country these things are arranged chiefly by the lady's friends. With your people I know it is different. Perhaps it is much better that it should be so in a matter in which the heart is to be concerned. It would come to the same thing with me. I must decide for myself. I am sure of it. May I venture to feel a hope that ultimately that decision may not go against me? Mr. Grascour had said this, as he said this, did throw some look of passion into his face. But I have spoken nothing yet of my own feelings. It is unnecessary. This might be taken in either one of two senses, but the gentleman was not sufficiently vain to think that the lady had intended to signify to him that she would accept his love as a thing which he could not have doubt. "Ah, Miss Mountjoy," he continued, "if you would allow me to say that, since you have been at Brussels, not a day has passed in which mingled love and respect have not grown within my bosom. I have sat by and watched while my excellent young friend Mr. Anderson has endeavoured to express his feelings. I have said to myself that I would bide my time. If you could give yourself to him, why then the aspiration would be quenched within my own breast. But you have not done so, though, as I am aware, he has been assisted by my friend Sir Magnus. I have seen and have heard and have said to myself at last, now too my turn may come. I have loved much, but I have been very patient. Can it be that my turn should have come at last?" God. Though he had spoken of Mr. Anderson, he had not thought it expedient to say a word of Captain Scarborough or of Mr. Annesley. He knew quite as much of them as he did of Mr. Anderson. He was clever, and put together the absolute correctness with what Mrs. Mountjoy had told him, with other little facts that had reached his ears. "Mr. Grascour, I suppose I am very much obliged to you. I ought to be." Here he bowed his head. "But my only way of being grateful to you is to tell you the truth." Again he bowed his head. "I am in love with another man. That's the truth." Here he shook his head with the smallest possible shake, as though deprecating her love, but not going so far as to wish any harshness. "I am engaged to marry him." There was another shake of the head, somewhat more powerful. "And I intend to marry him." This she said with much bold assurance. "All my old friends know that it is so, and ought not to have sent you to me. I have given a promise to Harry Annesley, and Harry Annesley alone can make me depart from it." This she said in a low voice, but almost with violence, because there had come another shake of the head in reply to her assurance that she meant to marry Annesley. "And though he were to make me depart from it, which he will never do, I should just be the same as regards to anybody else. Can't you understand that when a girl has given herself, her heart and soul to a man, she won't change?" "Girls do change, sometimes." "You may know them. I don't. Not girls that are worth anything." "But when all your friends are hostile?" "What can they do? They can't make me marry another person. They may hinder my happiness, but they can't hand me over like a parcel of goods to anyone else. Do you mean to say that you would accept such a parcel of goods?" "Oh, yes, such a parcel." Well, I guess, unlike the French, no one made any claims for Belgian lovemaking. Although I should point out here, the French failed just as bad. "You would accept a girl who would come to you telling you that she loved another man? I don't believe it of you." "I should know that my tenderness would beget tenderness in you." "It wouldn't do anything of the kind. It would be all horror. Horror. I should kill myself, or else you, or perhaps both." "Is your aversion so strong?" "No, not at all. Not at present. I like you very much. I do indeed. I'd do anything for you in the way of friendship. I believe you to be a real gentleman." "But you would kill me." "You make me talk of conditions of things which I am quite impossible. When I say that I like you, I am talking of the present condition of things. I have not the least desire to kill you, or myself, or anybody. I want to be taken back to England, and there to be allowed to marry Mr. Harry Annesley. That's what I want. But I intend to remain engaged to him. That's my purpose, and no man and no woman shall stir me from it." He smiled again, and again shook his head, and she began to doubt whether she did like him so much. "Now I've told you all about myself," she said, rising to her feet. "You may believe me or not, as you please, but I have believed you. I have told you all." Then she walked out of the room. Mr. Grascour, as soon as he was alone, left the room and the house, and making his way into the park, walked around it twice, turning his mind the success of his want of success. For in truth he was not at all dispirited by what had occurred. With his other Belgian lover, that is, with her other Belgian lover, that is, with Mr. Anderson, Florence had at any rate succeeded in making the truth appear to be the truth. He did believe that she had taken such a fancy to that fellow Harry Annesley that there would be no overcoming it. He had got a glimpse into the firmness of her character which had been denied Mr. Grascour. Mr. Grascour, as he walked up and down the shady paths of the park, told himself that such events as this so-called love on the part of Florence were very common in the lives of young English ladies. "They are the best in the world," he said to himself, "and they make the most charming wives. but their education is such that there is no preventing these accidents. The passion displayed in the young lady's words, he attributed solely to her power of expression. One girl would use such language such as been hers, and such a girl would be clever, eloquent, and brave. Another girl would hum and haw with half a yes and a quarter of a no, and would mean just the same thing. He did not doubt but that she had engaged herself to Harry Ainsley, nor did he doubt that she had been brought to Brussels to break off that engagement, and he thought it most probable that her friends would prevail. Under these circumstances, why should he despair? Or why, rather, as he was a man not given to despair, should he not think that there was for him a reasonable chance of success? He must show himself to be devoted, true, and not easily repressed. She had used, he did not doubt, the same sort of language in silencing Anderson. Mr. Anderson had accepted her words, but he knew too well the value of words coming from a young lady's mouth to take them at their true meaning. He had at this interview effected a certain amount of intimacy with Florence, of which he thought that he appreciated the value. She had told him that she would kill him, of course in joke, but a joke from a girl on such an occasion was worth much. No Belgian girl had ever joked. No Belgian girl would have joked. But then he was anxious to marry Florence because Florence was English. Therefore he went back to his own home. He directed the system of high polish should continue on his boots. "I don't suppose he will come again," Florence said to her mother, misunderstanding the character of her latest lover quite as widely as he misunderstood hers. But Mr. Grascour, though he did not absolutely renew his offer at once, gave it to be understood that he did not at all withdraw from the contents. He obtained permission from Lady Mountjoy to be constantly at the embassy, and succeeded even in obtaining a promise of support from Sir Magnus. "You're quite up a tree," Sir Magnus had said to his Secretary of Legation. "It's clear she won't look at you." "I have pledged myself to abstain," said poor Anderson, in a tone which seemed to confess all the chance was over with him. "I suppose she must marry someone, and I don't see why Grascour should not have as good a chance as another." Anderson had stalked away brooding over the injustice of his position, and declaring himself that this Belgian should never be allowed to marry Florence Mountjoy in peace. But Mr. Grascour continued his intentions, and this it was which had induced Florence to tell her mother that the Belgian was a great trouble, which ought to be avoided by a return to England. So that is the end of that chapter. Florence has yet another suitor, and she is being as plain as she possibly can be about all these flies hovering around her in Brussels. Now, at this point in the narrative, Trollope has two choices, a good choice and a bad choice. Now, I'm not putting Trollope on a pedestal. I love him. As a storyteller, I love him. I'm not putting him on a pedestal. There are plenty of times, even in major novels. This is a major novel. This whole thing is completely under his control. He was old and sick when he wrote this. Died before he could see it as a book. Died when it was in serialization. But his powers are completely his own in this book. No wonder he writes Mr. Scarborough with such sympathy. Even so, he has two choices. He, even in a book where his powers are completely under his control, in his greatest masterpieces from 10 years ago, he can make bad choices, storytelling choices. And he has two choices now. Do you prolong this? Do you keep this going? How many times do you have the same young woman say the same thing to a number of different men? You have made it completely clear that none of these men are ever going to move her. You've made that completely clear. She's also made it completely clear to everyone who's trying to prevent it, especially her mother. So if you're the storyteller here, do you keep trying? Or do you decide that you've exhausted this plot of all of its possible tension and change it? And you put the change on the table. The change is to return to Cheltenham. That's the decision for next time. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.